One way we work for our kids is by rewarding our teachers.
And this week, Governor Ducey announced plans to reward teachers with a 20% pay raise over the next 2 years. And it is a big jump from the 1% he offered at the start of the year. Now it's up to lawmakers to put the plan into action. Good evening. I'm political editor Dennis Welch, and this is Politics Unplugged. And joining us now to talk about how this plan would work and how it all comes together is the Governor's Chief of Staff, Daniel Scarpinato. Thank you very much for being here. So give us the kind of the outline of this plan and how it works.
Sure. So the governor really believes that our teachers need to be rewarded. He's heard, he's listened, and now we're acting. So what this plan does is it takes the 2% pay raise that was approved last year by lawmakers. It takes it to 10%, so that's 9% in the current year, which will start in the school year in the fall. And then the next 2 years after that, another 5%. So that means by the start of the 2020 school year and fall of 2020, teachers will have received a cumulative 20% raise. We think this is a real way to reward our teachers, to drive up teacher pay. It'll take the average teacher pay in Arizona from roughly $48,000 to roughly $58,000. And that's a real step in the right direction. More to do always, but this is a real step in the right direction for
a lot of questions how you guys are going to pay for this. Seems to be a lot of speculation and some confusion. I mean, you know, watching the Twitter, watching Facebook.
Yeah.
You guys are not doing any cuts to do this. You guys are using some excess revenues. I believe last month there was a projected $258 million surplus.
That's right.
Now, you guys revised that up to $274 million to help pay for this. And that's on top of the $34 million that you guys had already offered for that 1% bump. Is that correct? For that first initial 10% raise.
That's correct. So here's what we're not willing to do. This can't be a shell game. We can't move one pot of money in education to another. We need to reward our teachers with new dollars. So the governor also has a plan, which he released in January, that puts roughly $400 million over the next few years into capital for our schools. This is for construction, this is for textbooks, this is for supplies. This is really important for our schools. So that stays intact. We're not going to touch that. We're not going to touch Prop 123. We're not going to touch 301. These are new dollars that are going to go in. We are going to accelerate a piece of the 301 sales tax so that we're going to bridge the gap and bring those dollars in now for teachers. But these are going to be new dollars. In terms of paying for it, you're right. Our economy is growing. Our revenues have been higher than projected. We're also going to make some adjustments to the priorities the governor laid out in January. And through the weekend, we're going to be working with the legislature, with lawmakers, and all through next week on getting this done and hammering this out. But we've taken a look at the priorities the governor put out in January, and we feel like we can make some adjustments.
Is this affecting it at all? I mean, I know he had a bonding component in his budget proposal that he put forward at the beginning of the year that also help with construction of new schools. Does this affect that at all?
We are going to continue to build new schools. We're going to continue to invest in capital. We're going to continue to invest in facilities. These need to be separate and apart from that. We can't just move one pot of money to another. Okay,
and you talked about some of the initiatives that you know, he was rolling back. He mentioned that a little bit in the press briefing yesterday, or I should say on Thursday afternoon. He mentioned that. He didn't get very specific, but he did mention some things he was going to pull back. He was going to pull back a tax cut that went to veterans. He had mentioned something about his wrong way driving program. What can you tell us about that and other initiatives that he is going to forego?
I think there'll be some adjustments to those as we work through this with the legislature. Those are still things that are important and that we'd like to get to. But this is really the issue in front of us. I mean, we've heard from parents, from teachers, from school superintendents, teacher pay in Arizona needs to be addressed, and the governor is taking leadership here and putting forward a plan to do that. And we've been working on this for some time. We've been seeing these revenue numbers come in. We've been hearing from the community. I've been in these meetings, and the governor challenged staff to come forward with a plan that would work, and he kept pushing. They said, well, we don't know if we can do 20%. He said, we need to do 20%. They said, well, it's going to take 5 5 years. He said that's too long. So the governor really wanted to make sure we're doing this, we're doing it quickly, we're getting the money to teachers, and that we hit that 20% mark.
But this is not the entire way you're going to fund this raise, because I'd also seen in some of the releases that you put out reduced caseloads. Can you expand on that and what that means?
Yeah, the way these things work is when a budget is put out in January, it's based on projections that come out in November or December. Those are constantly being reassessed as the actuals come in from our agencies. So growth in our Medicaid program, growth in other services the state offers. None of this is cuts to programs. This is just taking a look at what was projected by the budget geeks who put these together, and then what actually comes in. So what we're seeing is some slower caseload growth in some of these programs, and that frees up additional dollars in addition to having revenues come in higher than expected because we have a growing economy.
So that is going to be like taking some, taking some money that is freed up from like from access, moving that over into pay for schools. How much money are we talking about?
I think all of that's going to be hashed out with the legislature, but I think the big part of this is a growing economy, revenue available, and we want to invest that in our teachers.
Okay, but again, I just want to get a little more specific into this, the caseload, the access stuff. I mean, how much money are we talking about? Does this free up? How does that mechanism work?
I think we're talking in the millions, and what we're talking about is no change in services to anyone on Medicaid, anyone on access. Okay. This is simply that we don't have as much caseload growth as we had originally projected last year. That means that dollars we thought would have to spend, we don't need to, and we can now prioritize them towards our teachers. Okay, so this is money from, say, that we're drawing down from the federal government, but this is attached, though, to Obamacare. Well, no, these would be state dollars. So these are going to be general fund dollars that we would have had to spend on other programs. That's just one of them. But there's caseload growth across programs throughout the state. And usually what happens, Dennis, is when we go through the budget work, you overestimate on what that growth is going to be like so that you hit a balanced budget. And then when we actually see the actuals come in, there's some cash that's freed up. So that'll be part of this. A growing economy will be part of it. But the governor also told staff, and he told the legislature, he's willing to take some of the priorities that he laid out in January that were non-education related and put those on the table as solutions to get here, because this is really the most important thing facing the state right now, is our K-12 system, our teachers. We want to keep our teachers in the classroom. We want to keep them here in the state. We know we have a teacher shortage, and we hope that this will help deal with it. It's only one piece of the pie, but it's a big piece, and it's going to make a real difference for teachers who are showing up every day. So what took so long? I mean, obviously, this Red for Ed movement, teacher frustration has been building not just over months, but over a number of years here. Did the Red for Ed movement change the governor's mind? Well, certainly he's been watching and he's been listening. I think we all have. This isn't something new for the governor. I mean, we've been focused on this issue since day one, and whether it was Prop 123 or the recent 20-year renewal of the Prop 301 sales tax for another 20 years. I mean, this has been a priority. I think we've had some new numbers come in, some new figures that have allowed us to do this, but we're constantly reassessing our budget proposal. I think we're getting close now to winding down the budget process, and the governor really wanted to take the leadership to put a plan on the table that addresses really a lot of the concerns that we've heard from teachers and from parents and from all the individuals who have been out there wearing red and participating in this. We think this really addresses a lot of the issues that they're talking about, but certainly he's been listening, and this is, I think, a sign of leadership that he wants to help deal with this. So now you got to hammer out the details. I think a lot of people are waiting to see how this is going to be paid. A lot of concern over that. Support at the legislature. Do you guys think you have that right now? Well, we hope we do, and really this is something that it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican, you should be able to get behind this. This is a 20% pay raise by year 2020 school year for teachers. It's something that both parties have been talking about, is rewarding our teachers. So we think this is another opportunity for bipartisan support, like we saw in opioids, like we saw in 301. This is really something that I think both parties can come together again as a sign of unity and to demonstrate to our teachers teachers that they're valued.
So last question here. When do you expect to see the details? When do you expect this to be approved?
We hope as soon as possible. I mean, the budget process is winding down, and it would be great if we could come on this show next week and have a budget signed and teacher raises on their way.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. That's all the time we have for this segment right now. We've got to take a quick break, but we do have more Politics Unplugged coming up next. One lawmaker says we need to get rid of the Board of Regents, and Arizona National Guard troops head to the border. We'll talk it out with our panel here on Politics Unplugged.
I've talked to a lot of teachers who say that they're living paycheck to paycheck and even then still struggling. And I've talked with teachers who are leaving the state for better paying positions, leaving the country for better pay.
By the beginning of the 2020 school year, every Arizona teacher will have received a cumulative raise of 20%.
But will the governor's plan be enough?
Schools in Crisis, Thursday at 9, only on 3TV.
Whoa, Nelly. Yes, big bacon belly. Onion lassos, can you wrangle it? Kissed by the flames, you can walk away whistling. It's the Western Bacon Cheeseburger. That's the call of Carl's. Pick up.
We're Lerner and Rowe. We may not have the power to stop a car wreck, but we definitely have the power to stop it from ruining your life. In a wreck, pick up the phone now. We're available 24/7. Call 977-1900.
Also handling criminal and DUI defense cases.
Want to make your love life sizzle like a Phoenix summer? Summit Male Medical guarantees to help you with ED or premature issues, or we won't charge you. We've helped tens of thousands of patients here in the Valley since 2008. Please compare our most experienced medical staff and low-price treatments to anybody. If you've talked to the rest, it's time to come to the best. Put the sizzle back in your love life. 480-398-1000 or go to summitmalemedical.com. Summit Medical, love for life.
Hi, Ed Marshall here. Don't sell your jewelry for scrap. Come to E.D. Marshall Jewelers. We need your fine jewelry, diamonds, watches, and coins, and we will pay the highest possible price. You have my word on it. Visit any of our 5 locations for a free quote. The main store is located on the east side of Scottsdale Road, just south of Shea Boulevard, Monday through Friday 10 to 6 and Saturday 10 to 5. Find us online at edmarshallbuys.com. E.D. Marshall Jewelers since 1971.
This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Remember that to love America is to love all Americans, because love has no labels.
Western bacon cheeseburger, cheese, bacon, Western bacon cheeseburger. I'm talking Carl Jr., pick it up. Western bacon cheeseburger, Carl Jr., pick it up.
And welcome back to Politics Unplugged. Well, one state lawmaker says it may be time to get rid of the Board of Regents. That is the board that, among other things, sets tuition rates at Arizona's 3 state universities. And joining us now to talk about that is Eileen Klein, the current president of the Board of Regents. But you have also announced that you're soon going to be leaving the board. So what prompted this decision? Where are you going now?
Well, to be determined where I'm going, but really I've been at the board now for about 5 years, and largely came in part to help reposition our university system for success after the Great Recession. And I'm really pleased with all of the accomplishments we've made to make sure that our universities are more accountable, high-performing, definitely transparent, most importantly, focused on students. So it's time now to think about what might be next.
So who do you think, is there anybody that's going to be, and do you know who's going to be replacing you? What's going to happen?
I anticipate the Regents will do a search for the new leader. They need to go through the process to figure out what they want to do from here and what type of leader they're looking for. And so I expect they'll announce that in the next couple of weeks.
So right now you're leaving at an interesting time at the Board of Regents, as we mentioned at the beginning, at the top of this segment. Some lawmakers, particularly one lawmaker, really has it out for you guys, says that maybe it's time to get rid of this of the board. Like, why are you guys coming under such attack right now?
Well, the state, first of all, our lawmakers, our policymakers should always be thinking about how to do things better. This bill that's been proposed this year is absolutely not the way to do that. We can't afford to see our university system essentially dismantled and politicized for no particular purpose other than one person's frustration frustration. Everybody in this state, everybody across the country is frustrated about the cost of college. They want to be sure that their students can get into college, their kids can get into college, and they can afford it. But we need to have a thoughtful approach to that, and every state is trying to figure out right now how to make their universities successful. What I'm pleased about is that our universities are successful, so this effort right now is ill-timed.
Now, the lawmaker we're talking about is Republican Mark Finchem. Now, he's got a current bill that would, essentially dismantle the board in its current form right now. But this is not the first time he has come after the board. Last year, he ran some legislation. What was that all about?
Correct. It was a similar effort, but a different type. So it was a, same story, but just told a different way last year. This time, though, there was a hearing on the bill. Last year, there was not. And but his presentation was made on a strike everything amendment in the Natural Resources Committee. If we're going to have an honest conversation about how to run the universities in the state of Arizona, that needs to be done with multiple stakeholders, everybody involved, and we need to make sure it's going to result in something better for Arizona.
So where is this legislation right now? Do you expect it to pass?
Dead. Let's hope it stays that way.
But you've been down at the legislature a lot. You know nothing is dead down there until they adjourn for the session.
Absolutely.
What kind of assurances have you gotten? And have you spoken with Mr. Finchem about this?
Well, Mr. Finchem and I have talked actually for the past couple of years, and I really appreciate his concerns, and I think he brings all of his concerns forward very sincerely. So I do know there's an appetite to make sure that we are holding universities to account, that there's strong stewardship. I would expect there to be some changes perhaps through the budget, but having said that, an overhaul of the governance system is not to be done in the dead of night at the legislature. It really does require a months-long stakeholder process. So we continue to meet with him and other lawmakers to have them understand really what the true story of success is about our universities. And right now, our universities are some of the most high-performing in the country. We don't need to set them back with these kind of efforts that really are not going to solve problems we all care about.
All right, I want to move on to a different topic now. Obviously, there was a big court ruling this past week, the State Supreme Court ruling that you can't offer, in-state tuition to Dreamers. These are the young kids protected from deportation under DACA. Your reaction to this ruling?
Well, we know this was really hard news for the DACA students. They'd been, I think, hoping against hope that the Supreme Court might find in their favor, and I think everybody watching this case knew that it was going to be tough. But the board, as it had committed, once the court had finally decided, and if it decided against the ability for the board to offer in-state tuition, that it would immediately change its policy. So the board has agreed to do that. We're waiting really for the details of the decision. The court has rendered its decision, but not yet its opinion. So we'll make sure in the next couple of months we're in compliance. In the meantime, we've been working with private funders and others to make sure that these students don't see their education disrupted, but that we are making sure that their education is in strict compliance with the proposition passed by the people.
Well, is there anything else that the board is looking at to do to help these Dreamers continue further their education? Well, I know they've got a lot of support with the education community, with people like President Crow and other university presidents.
Yes, there's been an outpouring of support for the DACA students, and most everybody recognizes their particular circumstances, but nonetheless, we have to make sure that the tuition rates we offer are lawful. So we have created a policy that would impact the DACA students who have graduated from Arizona high schools. If they are Arizona high school graduates, they would be eligible as non-residents for a rate that's about 150% of the regular tuition rate. At the same time, like I mentioned, we're finding private funding sources so that we can protect taxpayers, be in compliance with the law, but also help support these students. Most importantly, we've continually urged Congress, and we're grateful to our local congressional leadership who has fought to make sure these students get legal status. They have got to get legal certainty for their own lives and certainly for their ability to continue as resident students. We need Congress to help with that.
Okay, and the last question here I want to ask you, as you're leaving, is there anything in the works right now with the board, the universities can do to start lowering tuition or freezing tuition? Obviously, Attorney General Mark Brnovich had really highlighted some of the steep increases in tuition over the past, many years now. We're talking, over 300% increases here at all three state universities. Right. Anything that is going to be done about that?
You bet. Well, I'm really pleased to say that long before the lawsuit, the board had made a very deliberate decision to slow the rate of tuition increases. Over the past 5 years, tuition has been curtailed. We have implemented tuition guarantee programs at all of our schools. Really, ostensibly, the Attorney General brought his lawsuit about because of the DACA students. And I would say this is a perfect time now with the Supreme Court's ruling for the Attorney General to reconsider the case. We've used the case as an opportunity to tell the truth. Our costs are lower than many of our peer institutions. They rank lower than the national average, and our tuition rates have slowed. So we're very pleased with the progress we've made. More to be done to make sure that tuition stays affordable, that our state's providing appropriate support. But it's time now for us to focus on the success of our universities and move on.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for joining us, Eileen Klein. Good luck in your future endeavors. But we do have more on Politics Unplugged just ahead. More from the race for the U.S. Senate to send troops to the border. We'll talk about it here on Politics Unplugged.
People hear the word delivery and they don't think quality. They don't think fresh, from scratch, or grilled slow over an open flame. Until now. Introducing a fresh take on delivery from El Pollo Loco. Order today.
Tired of spring cleaning those old dingy floors? Call Express Flooring today for free in-home shopping.
Just announced, get a spring explosion of savings up to 68% and no interest until 2020.
Call 800-EXPRESS.
Ever since I was 5 years old, it's been all about football. It's been about running, jumping, blocking, tackling. I have terrible foot issues that prevented me from really having a normal life with my kids. With the Good Feet Arch Supports, man, I'm always ready. My kids actually got to enjoy me in the yard more, racing each other, backpedaling, teaching them some things, being a dad.
Try them for yourself with a free arch support fitting and test walk at the Good Feet store.
At Mattress Firm, we think of our customers as family. So we'd like to extend our friends and family savings to you. Right now, enjoy an additional 20% off our low prices on America's best-selling brands, like Beauty Rest or Serta. Plus, you can pay no interest until 2023. Just like you're part of the family. Hurry in, our friends and family sale ends soon. Your budget stretches further at Mattress Firm.
Hey, job's all done. Kind of expensive, but I got an out-of-sight warranty.
Nice. What is the warranty?
When I'm out of sight, the warranty's void.
At Parker & Sons, all work comes with a warranty at no charge. We do things right the first time. That's how we've stayed in business for over 40 years. Call Parker today for all your plumbing, heating, cooling, and drain cleaning needs.
And I promise there'll be no melons on your job.
Call 602-2-REPAIR to get it done.
You made her college years possible, opening that education savings account when she was little, spearheading campus tours, and deciphering financial aid. If you can ace planning for college, you can do it for retirement. Get on track with tips at aceyourretirement.org.
Introducing the El Pollo Loco $10 10-piece. No freezers, no fryers, no funny business. Just 10 pieces of slow grilled, citrus marinated, real cooking pollo perfection. Get your $10 10-piece today. El Pollo Loco, fresh from the grill.
And welcome back to Politics Unplugged. It's time to talk it out with our partners from First Strategic. With us today is Barry Dill and Kurt Davis. Now, let's start with this whole teacher pay proposal that the governor has put out there. And Kurt, I want to start with you. How much of this Red for Ed movement, these protests, these walk-ins, these sick-outs, how much did this change the governor's frame of mind in thinking about this issue this year?
Well, I think it absolutely did. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's real. The issue's real. You just never want to lose perspective that he already is a record holder for putting the most money into education. He will enhance that record during his tenure as governor of increasing education funding.
And do you think he's going to get enough support down at the legislature to pass this?
I do. Okay. I do. What's interesting to me about it is that the reason they can pull this off is because of, in my opinion, a lot of the economic policies he's had in place, and they, in my opinion, are not singing that tune loud enough. The state's economy is progressing to the point that they're able to make this kind of investment, and that should be part of the message.
Okay, and there's also a political component to this. I mean, with the governor coming out, offering up this 20% raise, basically giving exactly what the teachers had been demanding, giving that all to them, really knocked the wind out of the sails for the Democratic Democratic gubernatorial candidates who were looking to try to turn this upcoming election later this year into a referendum on education, right?
Yeah, to a degree. But this is what I really believe is
to a degree.
I believe that what's happened is this will probably stop some of the bleeding that has occurred over the last month or so due to the protests and the focus on the governor. I don't think voters that wanted to vote for this governor have had their minds changed, and I don't think those that don't want to vote for this governor will have their minds changed by this. So it's sort of a stopping off point. And yes, Democrats are going to have to find other issues besides education, but I believe our two candidates have those and will make for an interesting race next November.
And do they risk looking like
as Kurt Wirely smiles and says I'm crazy?
Well, I mean, I've seen some of the responses from Democrats out there, and the Democrat Party put out a response to the governor's teacher pay proposal and saying this just puts a bandage on this wound. But do they look like they're sour grapes? Because again, this is a 20% raise. This isn't a 1% raise, not a 5% raise like we saw given out in West Virginia. This is a pretty big bump in pay.
What everyone would like to see is that this just isn't a one-shot, one-trick pony. That there are going to be continuing needs, not only just for teacher pay, but for capital improvements and keeping with the, if the economy is growing, as Kurt says, and it's really good, it means people are going to want to start moving in here. That means that there's going to be more demands on the public education system.
So let's stick with the governor now. Last week he agreed to work with the White House. He's sending over 300 National Guard troops down to the border. Now explain maybe why this isn't a waste of time, a waste of money. And the reason why I'm asking it that way is because, you look down at the numbers, border crossings are down 93% in Arizona since 2000. Border guards go down there. They don't have policing authority. They can't do anything like that. Why send them down there?
Oh, well, they can really enhance the technological backdoor of the border security. And when we talk about statistics about border crossers, those are built on those who are trying to come into the country illegally, who are coming here for economic reasons. There's other issues at the border related to security. Other bad guys that aren't wanting to come here because they want an economic opportunity. They want an opportunity to do damage to the United States. And that is a real issue that we can never forget with a border as porous as ours.
All right, now let's move on now, and we're still a couple of months away, really, for this U.S. Senate race here, open seat here in Arizona, to really start heating up. But Kyrsten Sinema, the current congressionalwoman, she's just dropped her first ad. Let's play a little bit of it for you right now.
I'm a police officer. She's my little sis.
And he's my big bad Marine brother.
She's real headstrong.
I call it being independent. I bring people together because that's how you get stuff done. I'm Kyrsten Sinema. I approve this message.
And so does her big bro.
Wow, that's a really warm ad in this era where we're seeing a lot of, hardball politics and a lot of name calling. What'd you think of this?
Well, I think it's a terrific ad because it reinforces her as a get-along person. And there's so much friction amongst Republicans and Democrats and others, in the nation's capital. It's complete gridlock. They won't talk to each other. Kyrsten has really found a foundation for herself to be a person that really wants to get something done, and I think that ad clearly reflects that. I also think it reflects her personality because she's a very warm, engaging person, and her engaging with her brother in that setting, there's nothing phony about it.
All right, well, thanks a lot, but that's all the time we have here for Politics Unplugged. But that's all the time we have for Politics Unplugged this week. Be sure to join us next week for more Politics Unplugged. Good night.